I know you see me. I heard the speaker click and the little light turned on 30 seconds ago. A very Stasia-sounding sigh emanated from the speaker box.
What are you doing here, Raleigh? I didn't know any of your other authors were in the area. Athena normally sends out emails when there are official signings.
No one's here. I'm in L.A. on my own dime. Around 4,000 dimes, actually. And that price was for a one-way ticket. He wasn't made of money, especially since his rent check had just cleared.
Oh, why's that?
She asked. Grinding his teeth, he took a deep breath in through his nose and moved closer to the camera. Open the gate, sweetie, so I don't have to make a scene in front of Adrienne Valliere's driveway. The last thing you need is for a ranting redhead to show up in living color and a center spread in one of those trashy gossip magazines with a so-called reporter speculating wildly on why he's there.
And for that ranting redhead to be identified as one of the McKean spawn.
Oh, so you do understand how this shit works then.
I'm going to pretend that sarcasm wasn't for me and that you're just cranky because you haven't eaten.
You know I'm right, Stasia.
The paparazzi loved Adrienne Valliere. They'd been swarming him since the earliest peeps had gotten out about his involvement in the adaptation. He was a genuinely nice guy, and people were fascinated by him because he'd been on the covers of so many of Stasia's books. They were finally getting a chance to see him move and talk. But the problem with that was that he had an extraordinarily private wife who was just trying her hardest not to get entangled in his fame. That was why they'd moved to the gated property in the first place. People had been starting to stalk that poor woman, and unlike Stasia, she didn't have the heart to shame them into knocking it off. There was a buzz, and the pedestrian gate gave an inward lurch. Raleigh scurried through and hit the button to reverse the swing in case there were any cameras following him. Because he'd been lying low and having a relatively boring, unproblematic existence, he hadn't been splashed in a tabloid for a few years, and he wanted to continue that trend. Stasia appeared from the north side of the property, picking her way barefoot up the stone path. Her unbound, wiry hair was more nest than style, and her eyes were covered with dark shades.
"Late night?"
he quipped. She cleared her throat and canted her head in the direction she'd come from. Without moving her lips, she said, "I'm staying in the pool house, remember?"
"Yes, that's the lie you told me. It was a lie, right?"
"Shut up and keep walking."
"Fine."
He kept his mouth shut until they were safely ensconced in the cute little guest house and had the door closed. Then he cast his gaze about and scoffed. There was no furniture, except for a single sofa and a couple of bar stools at the kitchenette counter. The place had the sort of stale smell that usually permeated unlived-in domiciles, of dust and unflushed drains. Stasia drew the curtains shut. "So."
"Yes, so. Given the close nature of our relationship, I won't beat around any bushes. What the hell are you doing?"
Turning to face him, she took off the sunglasses and blinked. She had deadline bags under her dark brown eyes, and he was glad. She deserved them for giving him the stomach ulcer he could feel forming.
"Don't play that innocent ingenue role with me," he snarled when she did that Bambi blink again. "I know better. Spit it out. My job is to keep your name on people's minds so you sell more books, but it seems you've found another way to make people think about you."
She rolled her eyes. "Fine. I'm sleeping with the Vallieres."
Such a quaint way of putting it.
He dropped his bag at his feet and emitted an impassioned snort.
"You're doing a little more than sleeping with them, in my estimation."
She sucked her teeth, shrugged. That was the Stasia he knew, the one he kept on a short leash at public events. She was much more sociable in text than in person, but he'd found that that was typical of Athena's authors. They weren't people. "Okay, yeah, so how'd you figure it out? What'd I miss?"
"Oh, just little things, like how sometimes you or Dara would forget to log out from the other's email account before sending me something. Only takes me 30 seconds to figure out the writer's style doesn't match their name, by the way. People who aren't intimate don't let other people mess around on their computers."
Grimacing, he amended.
"Actually, it's probably an A-plus plan not to let people you're banging have access to your computer either. Remember? I learned that lesson with Allison."
Allison had been the closing bookend in Raleigh's long period of serial monogamy. She'd been the complete package, gorgeous, intelligent, and socially conscious. She'd also been a political operative who thought he